Hello, everyone. Isabella reads an Amazon Made Simple podcast. Today, we are not having the regular conversation about Amazon tactics and how we are going to rank on a page one or find another product to sell on Amazon. Today, we're going to talk about the mindset shift. And I have a very special guest that I was planning to interview, believe it or not, for the past 5 years. Ivan de la Cruz Santiago, welcome to the show.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, can you please let us know how did you ended up with e-commerce and what happened in the past several years? And the full disclosure, Ivan was in the military, so he is current veteran. In case if he would not want to disclose it, but for a lot of people out there that want to transition from military life to their real entrepreneurial experience, that's the podcast where I really want you guys to listen.
Okay. So I kind of went into it through your exposure, right? So like when we first met, for those that don't know, we're married, right?
I wanted to keep it to the very last thing. Damn it. Okay.
Well, it's important for the context of the conversation, right? Because like I started, so I'm very good at information management and like building systems because when I was in the military, heavy operations planning, tactical planning, like all, you can't do that and not plan, right? Like that's how people die. So we need to I was very good at that. And she is not as good at that, right? And so with certain things that she was building for the company, I just said, hey, when we first met, it's like, I'll help you out with certain things like databases, nerd stuff, right? And that's kind of how it got started. And then as our relationship grew, I became more and more involved in the business and learning it and going to conferences and learning how there's actually a lot of similarities in between how you operate e-commerce and grow a business in general from military tactics and war strategy. So that's how I got into it. It was through the door that you opened, but I stayed because it's pretty cool.
Back in the days, I remember you've been asking me how to start business on Amazon, which was extremely weird questions to me. And when I started explaining the ways how to approach e-commerce, you decided to invest into your first product. So can you please share this experience and tell me through how many challenges you went through, because you ended up as a six-figure going into seven-figure sellers of today. So what was your journey regarding the product research and development? And then if you can also incorporate the answers about the mindset shift, about the emotional challenges, about the struggles and how they're, and generally speaking, how did you go through that?
Yeah. So I think anytime that somebody starts a new venture, we tend to focus a lot on ourselves. And that's because there's a lot of insecurity that comes from not knowing the information and not knowing what you don't know, right? And because of that, we kind of turn inward. And when we turn inward, we start asking, for lack of a better term, stupid questions about certain things that only make sense when you're thinking about yourself, right? So an example of that is, you just start making up stuff about what you want to sell that you think would be a good idea. Like, hey, I love coffee, so I'm going to sell these paper cups, and there's nothing that anybody's going to do to stop me. I'm going to make the best paper quality cup in the world, and it's my pure willpower is going to.
By the way, do you remember your first idea?
Yeah. You can't even sell it on Amazon anymore. It was like a NMN resveratrol supplement.
No, you said I want to sell thank you cards.
Oh yeah, thank you cards was the first one. Yeah, that's true. Because I'm a big believer in like gratitude and like showing stuff to people, right? But again, I was so turned inward where in my old profession, right? Like when you're war planning, you don't start with like, this is the battle I want to wage. You start with intelligence. Like, what do the spies tell us is going on, right? What does the satellite imagery show? What is the enemy movement, right? How does the terrain look? That's where you start. And it's exactly the same way pivoting into business. you have to get a lay of the land, right? When it comes to the product research we're talking about, it's like you got to look at what the market's doing. You got to figure out how hard it is to do that. And just because you have a good idea doesn't mean that the vision that you have and the way that you think you're going to execute it through willpower alone is the best way to actually do it, right? And so I ended up pivoting completely to something else, right? Like we sell in ceramics now. But that was a big mindset shift. And so you have to kind of get outside of yourself and focus externally first. It's like, how can I learn about the thing that I'm going into? What are some of the first principle things that I need to understand about an industry, and forget about the good ideas that you think are going to work from like a YouTube video that you watched for 7 minutes.
So, what were your principles
Regarding what?
regarding the choosing the product,
It was just mostly based off of personal opinion.
and how did it shift?
It shifted when I saw that numbers did not support my personal
So,
opinion.
what numbers did you start to look at when you've been chasing down the idea you want to sell?
Yeah, big one, the big one, very big one was when you take a look at what established competitors in the space are doing when it comes to advertising, right? Because I think a lot of people forget that they're not just going to buy your stuff because you plop it down, right? Like they're not going to just stumble upon your thing on Amazon or on your Shopify site. Like to advertise is to make known, right? Alex Hormozy talks about that all the time. And it's how are you going to let people know about your stuff, right? And when I realized that, hey, like for the thing that I wanted to do, in order to be profitable and all that stuff, I would need to spend about like $45,000 a month on just ads in the way that I wanted to launch it. And I don't have $45,000 a month to spend on ads at the time. It's like, okay, that is not a good fit. And therefore you
I
kind of
wanted to say something. Sometimes you don't have 45,000. Sometimes you just don't want to spend 45,000 that you have, and you did have 45,000.
That's fair.
You just didn't want to spend 45,000.
But to your point, because we work with clients that have money all the time, right? And like just because you have money doesn't mean you can just throw money at the problem. Sometimes you just
Absolutely.
have to be smarter about it, right?
But would you say it's fair if you were like, if you have an opportunity to spend 45,000 to make $450,000, would that be fair? At least to start to keep validating the product deeper.
Yeah, 100%. And the primary thing back to mindset here is just fear, right? So this conversation you can have with this conversation is easier to have with people that have already been selling and at least understand the operations aspect of it, because they say, okay, if I put X dollars in, Y dollars will come out, and I'm, fairly certain that operationally I can manage it. But if it's somebody's first business, a lot of time they get sticker shock of saying, I have to put this much in order to get this much out. But their risk tolerance, because their mindset is not there yet, is too low for that, right? And so sometimes, sometimes you can bring people across the finish line, and sometimes you can't. And at the end of the day, you're not really the ones bringing them; they have to bring themselves.
100%. So if you will take a look at the metrics of product research, when you have to assess if it's actually a good idea or it's a horrible idea, given that you already, how many? 6 years in, almost 6 years in, and you already understand. You went from, I want to sell $6.99 thank you cards to what's the highest price for the products you're selling right now?
It's like $150.
To $150 per product. So that's a pretty big stretch here. That's a pretty big jump. So what metrics are you looking at when you're choosing products these days to launch as your next one?
Yeah. So this is where we
And
talk-
why?
And why? Yeah. So the first one is price point. And the reason that's one of the first ones I like to take a look at is because I think it's like Anderson Horowitz is like one of the primary things that they look at when it comes to like entrepreneurs is they don't look at the product, they don't look at the person, they look at the market, right? So because the market always wins. And so how can you use the structural basis of the marketplace to your advantage, right? And we know that on the Amazon marketplace, Jungle Scout is a great great partner of ours. They put out an amazingly informative yet very boring report called "The State of the Amazon Seller." It comes out quarterly. There's no knock on them; they have excellent data, but maybe use Claude to make it more entertaining. But one of the things that they
That's
have,
a punch in the face. I do love.
it is not a punch in the face; it is a slap on the wrist. It's different. So one of the things.
This is when the wife is interviewing husband. That was the full disclosure. Okay, keep going.
So, but like the retail price distribution on the marketplace, right? So about 78% of sellers, and this comes out in the report, 78% of sellers, they sell at a price point of $50 or below. 67% of that is $31 or below, right? And if we know that going in, and we know that the majority of sellers are actually not US based, I say that again with emphasis so people fucking understand. They are Chinese sellers, a lot of fucking factories. If you're trying to sell a $7 thing, you're competing with the people making it.
That are making it at like $1.72.
Exactly. So like, why would we play a game of resources when we can play a game of value, right? And a lot of the times, culturally, they still don't understand how to sell to the American culture. And we know that at the higher price points, they believe that the primary driver that people are making for decisions is price, and that's not true, especially the more expensive you get, right? And so by going up market, you're bypassing 78% of the competition, you're making more money per unit, you're bypassing structurally a lot of the people that like to play the price war games, and that's a much more scalable model. Not to mention, you keep all the tire kickers out. All the people whose New Year's resolution is to try something on Amazon to see what works, right? In quotes, and they're gonna spend their $2,000 on selling essential oils because it's what they can afford, right? You don't have to deal with those people who are not real business owners, or at least certainly not trying to be real business owners. And so that's from a paradigm shift is how can I sell the most expensive thing to people who are making the decision based on value. That's number one. And then the second one is, at least in these days, taking a look at demand supply ratios and like all that stuff. But
So
that's a little bit more tactical.
It is tactical, but at the same time, I promised you guys we're not going to talk tactics about Amazon, and here we are. So demand to supply ratio, that this metric actually is not very popular. And if you guys are selling on Amazon for a while, I hope you are looking at these numbers. And can you please elaborate a little bit more? Where can you find this metric, and how do you define that demand to supply ratio is actually makes sense or it doesn't make sense? And if it does, what other conditions supposed to support the decision to move forward with this product?
Yeah.
Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, it does.
Great.
So for nerd alert, right, is that I have a master's in public policy and economics. So I did a lot of like statistical analysis. I will not sound like a statistic nerd. Okay, so all this magic ratio is you're taking the search volume of a keyword and you're dividing it by the number of competing products. Now, the reason that you can't just willy-nilly do that off of the search volume that you find using free software and then the total number of products that are indexing based off of what Amazon is telling you is because a lot of shit is not relevant to that keyword. An example of that, if you're searching, let's say, coffee table, right? Let's say you're legitimately trying to sell a coffee table. When you go and shop for that stuff, there's gonna be other coffee table related things there. So like mugs, books, decor, things like that. And people see that on the page, even though it's not relevant to the thing, right? And so you have to use a tool like Voke AI, right? Because they've done the due diligence to be able to sort out what are the actual competing products, right? So like in the example I just gave, what are the actual coffee tables? And then you divide that number by the search volume. And obviously, the smaller the number of competitors, the more efficient that ratio is, right? Because if there's 10,000 people searching for a coffee table per month and there's one competitor, they're capturing all of that, right? And then if you go to two competitors, now you divide it by two and you divide it by blah. So you want that number to be as big as possible because if there were zero competitors, that would be infinity, okay? So that's number one. You want that to be big, and big is really just relative to what the others are. So sometimes you'll see in that example, maybe you'll see that the ratio is 10. But if all the other ones are like 3, then you identify, okay, that's the primary keyword that I need to target, right? And sometimes you don't go for the highest search volume one. You go for the one that has the best ratio because you're capturing the most amount of search volume relative to the other competitors that are there. So that's a little bit tactical there.
I will add something there
But
too.
back to your point about strategy is that, again, how can you use the structure of the marketplace to your advantage? And that is, how can I get the most demand for the least amount of competition? And that is one of the measurements by which you assess that.
Right. And one more thing to that is when you are searching for the product with the as low as possible supply to demand ratio, uh, don't look at the products that are just relevant and listed on Amazon, because there is a difference in between competing products and, okay, I will show you that. Listed products and competing products. Competing products are actually those that are relevant and making sales, and their sales can be happening from outside external traffic, from PPC campaigns, from organic traffic, and etc. So competing products sometimes have very lower amount of competitors actually than listed products overall, because as Ivan mentioned in the very beginning, there are a lot of sellers that are trying to sell, but they're not selling because they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. And then the last thing strategically is how can you start to see Amazon as how can you start to see your business as a business that uses Amazon as a distribution channel instead of an Amazon business? And that's very different, because in the latter case, right, it's like you're purely focusing on just the marketplace, just the platform. And you're like, I'm an Amazon seller, and therefore I'm focusing on this marketplace. Problem with that is it's one marketplace. And we've all had stories. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars held by Uncle Jeff and his friends this past Q4, right? For a completely arbitrary reason that they don't tell you. And that sucks, right? And if it's not our first rodeo, so we just know how to handle that. But I could just imagine if I was like a first time seller and I inputted like my life savings into this, and all of a sudden the marketplace was just like, hey, that thing that like just took off for you that's doing awesome, we're gonna hold that money for no reason. We're not gonna tell you why, but we may release it someday. By the way, I want you to keep selling, right? Like, what kind
without having money in the pocket,
without having money to pay for more inventory, just keep going, please, right? So but to see it more of like, okay, this is a conduit that I can use to grow my business. So how can I go multi-channel, right? How can I use, the Shopify's and the TikTok shops of the world and companies like Levanta to like help retarget and like things like that? Like, how can I use that to build multiple channels, to build a brand that I can exit 5 to 7 years from now, instead of just like, how many different type of like stupid tchotchkes can I sell on Amazon? But like, how can I like actually build something that's worthwhile to people? I know it sounds like kind of high level theoretical to think about like, how can I add value to people's lives? But like, that should be the first and foremost thing that you should be thinking about.
You touched base with a lot of things that we actually should unpack, and I would want to unpack. So, number one, you said that sometimes Amazon is withholding your financials. So, Amazon is very challenging, and Amazon bring you things that you cannot expect. And for people that already experienced, they're like, okay, it's another challenge. I'm gonna solve it. So can you please elaborate more what kind of challenges Amazon is bringing on a table to the sellers pretty much on a daily basis?
Yeah, so that's a big one, right? So funds, that will tend to happen based off of sales velocity, right? So legitimately, you can become a victim of your own success, right? Like if your thing takes off on you, they will withhold funds to make sure you're not being fraudulent, which I understand because they want to protect their platform, yada, yada, yada. That's one of them. The second one is people producing products and they don't do a good job of reading the fine print of what it takes to sell those things on the platform, right? Things in the baby niche are or like anything having to do with children, things like that, because you need to have certain certifications in place before you go try to do anything. That's another big one. And then the other one is and we've talked about this before. Sometimes you're going to be at the mercy of clerks, right? And so, like, the people that are on the other line of that email, it's like a dude or dudette in India who is getting paid like not that much to answer the fucking email, right? And so sometimes people get furious and they'll send like these stupid emails like, fix this right now, blah, blah. Like, do you really think that the person who probably doesn't have the knowledge to help you is going to want to help you by you screaming at them over email? No, right? Call them on the phone, have a nice little chat, and be as helpful as humanly possible to help them help you, or at a minimum, like help them like elevate certain things, right? So coming at it again from a mindset perspective of, hey, you catch a lot more bees with honey than vinegar, right? So like go into it like this is a challenge. It's
That's
figure out
really a big one.
and
Yeah.
like don't harass the seller support people, because if they don't have the knowledge to directly help you, which 80% of them don't, why would they want to go the extra mile for you if you're shedding on them?
Yeah, and Amazon will definitely flag you after you send one emotional email, and then
You think that AI algorithm isn't tracking the assholes? You're wrong.
yeah, it's happening every single time, unfortunately or fortunately. We have clients that been reaching out to us and saying like, I didn't say anything bad. I'm like, can you please provide the screenshots of the conversation so we'll be able to assess if we can actually help. And then we understand that like after everything they said to Amazon, the chance to help them is very, very low. So don't pre-dig deeper your own graves. If you believe that you're fucked, please reach out to professionals and they will help you to unfuck yourself before you will make it worse.
Yeah.
Amazon is making a lot of flags and mistakes and errors, but given the network of people we're talking to, they say Amazon, in 97 statistically proven, in 97% of the cases, Amazon is right. But 3% of cases are still happening by error. And we do know people that being victims of these errors, ourselves included, and those cases you're able to fix more than Amazon is very open right now to Amazon sellers, and Amazon is going out to the trade shows, to different conferences. Amazon is opening up their emails to the sellers, and they're really open. They want to help you out as long as you are open to collaborate with them on it. So what do you think about Amazon fees?
They suck.
But how can you stay profitable? Because that's the biggest challenge. The more we're going to the conference and talking to sellers keep complaining by saying, I don't want to sell on Amazon because Amazon is cutting all my profits. So what is the biggest problem of the seller that doesn't see where the money at by keep doing the same things and blaming Amazon for the fees?
It's a great question. And I tie it back to the structure of the marketplace, right? So like number one, 37% of e-commerce sales happens on what platform, right? And their conversion rate, if you have like a 3 to 6% conversion rate on your Shopify site, like you're crushing it, right? A 3 to 6% conversion rate on your listing is terrible, right? And so like you can't knock the marketplace that has created this massive industry because you can't do math, right? It's not Amazon's fault. Like, are they probably being a little too much? Maybe. But are they also building the greatest logistical infrastructure and technological infrastructure in the history of humanity? Yeah. Right? There's a reason why like a dude in Bangladesh can sell in the US marketplace on Amazon and create a living for his family that would otherwise be completely unfathomable. And like for that dude to complain about fees is selfish. Okay? Now, granted, profitability still matters. So back to the structure, just sell more expensive things. That's it. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, write a letter to chair or like the Amazon board or like keep complaining in the forum about fees because now you went from making $1 per sale to making 75 cents per sale and your business model doesn't work anymore? Complaining is not a strategy. Like, and you don't get to dictate the way that the marketplace manifests itself. In the same way that, back to strategy, like in war, the US is a great example of this, right? Like, we were fighting terrorist groups and insurgents whose moral code is very questionable, right? And so, like, why are we going, if we behave in the same way that they behave, what makes us different? Right? That is why, we treat prisoners of war with a certain thing. Like, if in combat, if like there's a buddy of yours that's hurt and there's an enemy combatant who's more hurt, you're supposed to take care of them first and not your buddy. So like there's a bunch of rules, right? But in this particular instance, it's just like, just be better, right? Just sell more expensive things, establish other customer acquisition channels, do some social media, get better with your targeting, sell more expensive products. Like, that's just it. Like, I'm sick and tired of people complaining about the fucking fees. Like, they
Right.
can do something about it. They can't.
However, as you know, a lot of sellers will tell you, but I built my brand and every single product is my niche is at $15. So what I'm gonna do? So should I just give up my all, I don't know, 57 ASINs that are still making me, I don't know, 8-figure in revenue just to trash it?
Yeah.
So what is the solution if they actually do have a presence, if they do have following, if they actually build a business, not just the brand, not just the ASINs, what would be the smoother and better solution for them to pivot without making it extremely painful?
You launch something that's related to the target customer avatar that you are already targeting with your current product set, and then you try to upsell those people for the current products that you have. That's probably the least painful way to go about it, because the likelihood that the fees are going away is very low. Like, when have we seen Amazon reduce it? Don't worry, I'll wait, right? It's not gonna happen, right?
Sometimes they say,
So,
we
like-
will increase the fees only during Q4 and then they will go back.
Yeah, but like again, putting things, what's in your control,
Right.
right? It's like controlling Amazon's fee policy is not in your control. What is in your control is to be innovative, understand your customer, develop something that's higher so that you can sell them that, and then you can make more money on the back end of that by selling the stuff that you already have, right? But to engage in the race to the bottom, okay, maybe you're at 6% profit margins this year, and then next year you'll be at 5, and then the year after that you'll be at 4, and then you'll be at 3, right? So you're either gonna
Die.
die by 1,000 cuts, or you're gonna innovate forward. And that is just the history of human evolution and economics, right? You fucking adapt when things change, or you relegate yourself to obsolescence. That's it.
I love it.
Right? Same thing with the fucking AI thing, right? Like, AI is going to disrupt a lot of jobs.
Oh,
And
by
those
the way,
people
yeah.
can either get pissed or do something about it.
About AI. So you and I both know that Amazon is not implementing AI, including AI. Amazon has AI, and Amazon's algorithm right now is based on AI.
Yep.
Like all the titles that we guys have on our listings are being proposed by Amazon. We still have to put our SEO out there, but at the same time, Amazon is showing your target audience the titles that will appeal to them the most. So we cannot control that anymore. And what would be your message or recommendation / advice, whatever we can call it, frame it your way, to convince the seller on the opposite side of this podcast that there is no more, I will take a look at this tomorrow. There is no more, oh, I know Amazon is doing it, but I still have sales, everything is groovy. So what would you want to tell people that they will actually start thinking that they should do something about it?
Yeah. So this is actually an exercise you and I do where it's like pain forecasting, right? And that is, okay, if you know things are not working, right? Let's just see what would it feel like to go another year with this pain, right? It's like, how much did you lose this year? Okay, I lost 2 percentage points. Okay, let's make it 4. How does that feel? Not painful enough? How about 6? Right? And the thing is, like, you may not want to use AI because you find it complicated, or for some reason you think it's a fad in the same way that people thought the internet was a fad, right? Like, cool, man. You know who doesn't share that belief? The people fucking using it. And you know who's moving faster than you? The people fucking using it. And when money talks, bullshit walks.
Right? Yeah.
Like, do you really think that Microsoft is spending, they just bought 3 Mile Island.
Right.
Like, why would Microsoft buy a nuclear fucking facility to power their AI if AI is a fad and it's bullshit? Why? Why would fucking OpenAI be valued at, have trillions of dollars?
Because they want energy.
Yeah,
They
like
want,
why would that be the case if it's bullshit? It's just fear. So if the message to them is, dude, there's no courage without fear. That fear is not going to go away. If you're waiting for it to go away, it won't, because then in 6 months or 12 months, some other new problem is going to come up and you're going to feel scared again. And then in 4 years, another fucking problem will come up and you will feel scared again. And this is before we have fucking walking robots with AI on the streets of New York. That will happen in our lifetime.
Definitely. Yes. I totally agree.
So what are we going to do? Just be fucking scared into paralysis? Of course
It's not even in like our lifetime horizon. It's probably in the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah,
I would say.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. And so, like, it's 2 things.
We already have cars that are like. By the way, tomorrow we're taking. I uploaded that. How do they call it?
The Waymo thing?
Yeah.
Driverless cars.
Yeah.
that are more safe than humans.
Tomorrow we're taking this car to the airport.
Humans have, what was it? Humans have 1 accident per 1 million.
Yes, and it's
these Waymo
0.56 per million drivers. Yeah, and people have not zero. People have, I believe, 6 or 3.
No, it was 1.2.
1.2. Yeah.
This thing is literally 3 times safer than humans
Than
drive.
humans. Yeah, that's true.
3 times safer,
Yeah.
right? So, but if we had to get, because I know talking about fear doesn't make it go away. And so, like, a paradigm thing, back to mindset, is number 1, literally accept that the courageous are not people who don't feel fear. They are the ones that take action despite the fact that they feel fear. So you just have to accept that fear is part of the human condition. It comes with the territory of doing anything new because you legitimately don't know what will happen. That is the definition. If you don't know what's going to happen and you don't feel fear, it means 2 things. You either don't give a fuck about the outcome or you biochemically don't feel it. Both are problems.
Right.
Right? And then the second one is set the bar low enough. Because we have these massive expectations of like, fuck, I got to get all these fucking tools. I got to do this. I got to do that. It's like, start with 1. Start with the free one. And try to do 1 thing.
Or with the trial.
Yeah, or with the trial. But like, set the bar low enough to just do 1 fucking thing. Right? I use a fitness example all the time because it's easy for people to like visualize. I tell you, hey, we're going to get your upper body stronger. Do I immediately try to make you bench 500 pounds?
No, we're doing donkey kicks.
Yeah, but like, it'd be stupid, right? If you are trying to get somebody fit by immediately telling them to bench 500. So why, if you're trying to teach somebody AI, are you going to tell them like, hey, you need these 7 tools and this is what agents are, this is what vector databases are, this is how you reference that, this is how you build a Pinecone database? This is like, of course not. They're going to feel overwhelmed, fucking quit, go back to fear and just, suffer predictably, then deal with uncertainty. And so Set the bar low enough and accept the fear.
Ivan, I have a question to you. So, given that you've been able to transition from military to extremely high risk entrepreneurship business, and you had a lot of shifts, and I saw you growing, I saw you going through fuck ton of pain, and the person I see right now is a completely different person than I met many years ago. Like in your eyes, I can tell you're an entrepreneur, you're hungry for money, you're looking for the opportunities every single time you see something, you're acting as fast as humanly possible because speed is a king. And you're not saying, oh, we have to plan and maybe I will do it tomorrow. That this is not on the table anymore. And there are plenty of veterans or guys that are about to resign and they want to transition to this world. And we have probably 9 minutes left on this podcast. Let's talk a little bit about them and let's talk what would be your message to these guys that they do want to get where you are at right now? Because let's be very clear, sometimes your weekly revenue is their yearly salary, right? So sometimes your monthly revenue is their yearly salary. It depends on the rank, right? But what would you tell these guys? Appeal to Marines, appeal to Army guys, appeal to Navy SEALs, to all of them. Reserve, they're not that affected. They're still living civilian lives, but still. So what would you tell them? Yeah, I see the eye.
That's just it's so tough. The first thing, if you had to do one thing, is that you have to accept that the hierarchy ends with you. Right? Like you no longer have a colonel above you, you no longer have a captain above you, you no longer have a general that you have to answer to, right? You answer to you. And at the end of the day, when you fucking die, you will answer to you. And so don't allow the limitations of a hierarchical organization continue to limit you after you've left them. Right? So like we talk a lot about like mother may I bullshit. Like you don't have to ask permission. You don't have to do that. You just fucking do it. That's a huge one, right? And you go fast. In the same way that we were taught to take initiative in the battlefield, do that same fucking thing in your life. That's number one, first and foremost. The second one is there's a lot of fear about transitioning to industries you don't know. We've talked about that fear already. And a lot of my colleagues went to MBA programs. They went to go do consulting, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, admirable, right? But there's a very big difference in wanting to go that route and thinking that that's the only route where you can transition to be a civilian. There's a fucking reason why all those people who went that same route 15 years later want to escape the corporate rat race. So just future forecast. Great, you went to Stanford. Awesome. You worked at Google. Great. 15 years of answering to somebody else again, where does that put you? In the same spot that those people are today, trying to be business owners, trying to do their own thing, trying to leverage AI, trying to do all that stuff. That will be you, most likely, right? And then the other one is, and this is unfortunate, right, is that they transition to other security roles, right? So they'll become a police officer, right? They'll become like a private security contractor or like something like that. And again, that, like especially law enforcement, that profession, admirable, laudable, especially in our culture today, where like people don't trust them, right? Like they say all these things, like I'm a minority, so like I understand, right? Like I fucking get it. And they still choose to protect their community despite all that. But again, there's a big difference if you're doing that because it's a calling and you're doing that because holding a gun is the only thing you knew how to do, and now it's the only thing you think you can do. And if that's where you're sitting at right now, and you think you legitimately believe that's the only thing you're fucking qualified to do, I'm telling you, as a prior infantry officer who was obsessed with just tactics and learning about warfare, you're fucking wrong. Your potential is infinite, so go do whatever you want, and don't allow the limiting beliefs of a hierarchical organization to continue to limit you long after you've left it.
I have goosebumps. That's so awesome. And thank you so much for that. And I know you are very big guy into giving, and you, I know you're thinking about doing some type of the life coachings just because you want to help people. Would you want to say something? And I know it's unrehearsed and it's like your wife likes to do, Uh, would you want to offer something to the guys that are out there that are looking for the piece of advice that they don't know where to go and who to talk to? Would you offer them, I don't know, come and talk to you, ask you questions, and maybe you will be the one who will give them a hand and help them out?
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, just hit me up via LinkedIn. Just Ivan De La Cruz Santiago. That's the handle.
The whole alphabet
Yeah,
of
the
the
whole
world.
alphabet, right? Yeah, hit me up on there. Um,
I'll drop the link below. Whatever you're listening podcast or you're watching on the YouTube, it's right there.
Yeah, we'll talk it through at a minimum. When I've had these conversations in the past with like buddies of mine that were thinking about transitions and things like that, um, I'm here's the thing. I'm very very finicky about giving prescriptive advice. That means that like, hey, do this, then this, and this, and this, because using somebody else's map of reality to navigate your own is very dangerous because I don't have the nuance of everything in your life, right? But what I will do is I will ask questions that can help you flesh out that on your own. And they will probably be hard questions to answer, but it's those tough conversations that are going to lead you in the direction that you actually want, right?
Phenomenal. Thank you for answering this, and thank you for being on my podcast, and thank you for agreeing to be interviewed. Guys, that was Amazon Made Simple podcast. We wrapped up another session, and thank you so much for listening. If you are into Amazon product research, development, and validation, and you're stuck, and you're not the new seller, and you really understand that what are you going into, and you're ready to commit the risk, knowing that it's a high risk, but and that it's a high potential and high risk, and we can help you to mitigate that risk up to 95%. Please reach out to us. All links I'm dropping below. We're tailoring strategy specifically for you that will work for your business for free. Isabella Ritz, Amazon Made Simple podcast by Ecom Product Finders and Ritz Momentum. Talk to you soon.